Hello there girls and boys, today we're going to be talking about how to add sound to a logo. Hello there girls and boys, welcome back to the channel. As I said before, in this video I'm going to show you all of the things that goes through my head whenever I'm working on designing the sound for an animated logo. You know that in this day and age it's quite important to have a proper animation to introduce yourself as a brand. And as a musician, that's one of the many ways that you can actually make a living out of your talent. In here, I'm gonna show you how I approached this particular kind of job. And I'm gonna be working with a really interesting animation because this is coming from one of my friends. That guy is running a really amazing shop on which he's selling stuff related to anime and Japanese animation in general. So, the idea is to add the flair of how an anime sounds like, and by mimicking the introduction of one of those beloved anime shows. If this is your first time in the channel, I welcome you. In here I show you every single thing I do in order to create, write, produce, and of course perform our music live, because I know that making a living as a musician is not a dream, it's a possibility. And if I can do it, you can do it. With that being said, let's get into it now. Welcome back to Logic Pro X, girls and boys. In front of us we got a project that I used to make the sound design for this particular animation. First and foremost, girls and boys, I gotta explain to you how we're gonna go through this. First, I'm gonna show you the video without any form of sound, and from there, I'm gonna show you every single piece of sound that comprises the whole sound introduction of this animation. So here we go. So, let's watch the video together. Here we go, girls and boys. As you just saw, we got just a simple animation, it's basic, and the interesting part is this. The way that I like to look at this kind of jobs is by finding first the interesting spots. In this animation in particular, we got the first section, which is of course, the beginning of the animation. Bam! We get this area. Here. That's the first impact, that's where the first bam happens, so I left the marker there. And you can see the markers here, in this area. Now, the next area that I found to be interesting was over here. Bam! Which is of course the logo reveal. Since the color palette of this animation is kind of on the softer side of things, it reminded me of one of those girly anime from the 90s. And I think the one that reminds me the most is Sailor Moon. So, what I did is this. First, I wrote this ridiculously small, tiny, and simple piano, electric piano sound. Here we go, let me show it to you. Just like that. And in order to get it like that, I wanted to have something that sounded kind of reminiscent to that era, to the 90s. So I went straight to this plugin, which is a DS1 made by the fine people at UBI, and it's a really great and awesome recreation of an old synthesizer from the early 90s. Of course, I had to get that sound. And then I started to feel that the animation was kind of empty, given the fact that I wasn't using, well, it's just a piano piece at this point. So I wanted to add a second layer of synthesizers. And what I did is just the basic chord using this guy over here. Bam! It's basically the same synth, just using a different parameter, and we got this sound. And that guy sounds exactly like a Nintendo 64 game. So, then I wanted to add some bass to make it feel deeper and a little bit more punchier. But at the same time, I added a kick because I wanted to give weight to the logo reveal. That's the whole point of this animation. Here we go. Let me play it back to you, girls and boys. Up until that point, we got already something going on. It's not perfect, but it's kind of interesting. So let me play it back to you from the beginning so you can see how the logo reveal happens. Here we go. It's nice, it's fun, but we got plenty of information, especially at the beginning. We got all of these things. So, this begs the question, how to make it happen. So the thing is this, girls and boys, we got plenty of movement. Look at how many things are happening at the same time. It's not that we got several elements going around at the same time, but we got plenty of movement. So we have to reflect that movement with sound, and that's the tricky part. So how to do it? I was trying to come up with something that was fun, that sounded like the light, that it's like flashing lights, but at the same time that sounded like something that it's coming from one way to the other. So, how to do it? I came up with this sound. Let me show it to you. This is a nice trick that I got by using my favorite synthesizer, my favorite mono synthesizer, which is Monarch, and you will be quite amazed by the sound of it. Here we go. I'm gonna open the video as well. Much more interesting, isn't it? Now, let me show you how I got the sound. First, you could see that we are not using any of the oscillators. We are just using the noise generator and a tiny bit of the last oscillator of the sound engine. Also, I got rid of the attack, so we can have a kind of a windy sound. And also, this is gonna blow your head off. We are using analog gear to come up with this sound, and actually the delay, it's also coming from the analog realm. Let me show it to you. Here we go, girls and boys. We're using my beloved compressor slash preamp made by Universal Audio, because I liked the sound of this guy, especially on how the distortion that it's adding, or the saturation that it's been added to the sound of the whole thing. It's enhancing the sound of the synthesizer, of the white noise, but also it allows me to use another different external piece of gear. Let me show it to you, girls and boys. First, this is how it sounds like with the whole thing. Now let me get rid of the powerful analog gear. Boring is not as fun, but once we add the rest of the gear, ignore the fact that we are using delay, okay, girls and boys? What is happening is that we are adding an extra layer of distortion and compression as well, which is enhancing and adding a much more, a richer source of information to the whole sound, which is making it bigger and larger than life. So, now let me show you how I came up with this sound. The delay is coming from this guy over here, my beloved TC Electronic G Major 2. And I know, girls and boys, before you say anything, the G Major was designed to be used as a guitar effect, but it works marvelously well when you're using it in conjunction with a preamp on the loopback section. Now, what's the whole point of this? Why didn't I decide to use a plugin, a delay plugin, instead of using the analog gear that I have at my disposal? That's a great question, and I'm glad that you didn't ask. The reason is because since we are using the sound of the preamp to enhance and to add a richer character to the sound of our synthesizer, the digital synthesizer, the effect that I was getting out of the box, out of the effect unit, was enhanced as well by the sound of the preamp itself. What it's doing is sending a copy to the effects unit of the signal being processed by the preamp. From there, that signal is completely affected by the effects unit and then sent back. And it's added into the rest of the sound being processed by the compressor and the preamp section, which adds a much more richer character. That's the reason why I decided to use an analog rig instead of using the digital version. Now, the next step would be this. We got more elements moving around. Let me show you once again the video, just for you to have an idea. We got something going on already, but we have still plenty of movement going around. So the next thing to do was this. I added a new layer of wind. And let me show you how it sounds like now. Do you remember what I said about Sailor Moon? This is exactly what I was looking for, and now it's starting to feel like something out of anime from the 90s. How did I make that sound? That's a great question. This time around I am using once again Monarch, but instead of using analog equipment, I am using everything inside of the box. Why? Because it worked. Now, but let me show you what's happening here. Please pay close attention to this section, the filter section, because in there I got a really interesting thing happening. The sound that you heard, it's just a resonance filter, and it's moving around by me when I am performing. Let me show you once again. I'm gonna press play from the top and see what happens on the filter section. What is happening, girls and boys, is that since this filter is extremely powerful, the resonance is self-oscillating and it's making a sound by itself. And by changing the position of the cutoff frequency of that filter, we are changing the pitch of that resonance, which is awesome. Of course, after adding a healthy doses of delay, but this is not just a regular delay, this is BIOM, by the fine people of Unfiltered Audio. If you want to know more about this plugin, let me know in the comments down below, because this guy is a bit on itself. So, this thing is just adding a super simple, well, not simple, it's kind of complex, but it's adding a really nice layer of texture, but at the same time a great stereo image by applying a delay sound. So here we go. Let me play back the whole thing once again, and please pay close attention to the relationship between the images and the sound. Here we go. Then, when I got to this stage, I was like, okay, the name, the logo itself has some sort of lion's head. So I was like, how about if I add a lion's roar? So what I did was, I went straight to my sample library and I got one of my lion's roars. Yes, girls and boys, every self-professed music producer should have at least one folder full of lion roars. What I did was inserting the sound of the lion roar to the sampler, and we got this. But then I added a little bit of modulation using the Microshift plugin, which is amazing, and then a tiny bit of my beloved Realm, one of the best reverbs in the market. So we got to this point on which we're gonna get this sound. Watch the whole thing. Pretty cool, isn't it? But there is one more thing, and since I couldn't resist it, I had to add this final step. Once I got to this point, I felt like, okay, since this is about anime, why don't we use the most trendy anime thing ever in history? So I added this. Yes, that happened, girls and boys. And you won't believe it, but my friend, the guy who is running this business, this store, when I showed to him this one, the mock version, with the sound of the anime, wow, he loved it. Actually, that's the one that he's gonna be using. So there you have it, girls and boys. As you saw, girls and boys, it's kind of interesting. It's quite different from the way that you would approach to writing music. Because the idea here is to actually enhance and try to push the visuals even further by creating this image, well, not even image, by creating this bridge in between what you hear and what you see. It has to be coherent, and also it has to have some form of flair to it, you know what I mean? We're enhancing actually the visuals by adding sound. If you like to support this channel, the best way to do it is by listening to music on Apple Music or Spotify. Also following us on social media such as Instagram is great, because that's where most of the action happens. If you want to know more about this or any other subject, let me know in the comments down below, and I will be more than happy to answer any of your questions. As every single time that I meet you, girls and boys, I can remind you something. Never ever ever let anybody tell you what to dream about. And remember that I will see you when I see you.